All right, welcome everybody. We will call to order the Grand Forks City Council meeting for Monday, February 5th, 5:30 p.m. If we get a roll call, please. Maureen.
Weigel.
Here.
Osowski. Here. Weber.
Here.
Lenski.
Here.
Gavami.
Here.
Sandy.
Here.
Veen.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Item 1.2, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, item 1.3, Mayor's announcements, just a couple of announcements. I did miss the last committee of the whole meeting. We had Lieutenant General Kevin Kennedy, who is the commander of the 16th Air Force, up in the Grand Forks. Great dinner meeting, certainly much excitement around the Grand Forks Air Force Base, so very excited to see. On Thursday, January 25th, the Chamber held their annual dinner, and followed by kind of a packed day. I think the highlight there was with Kevin O'Leary coming to town and really showcasing what's great about Grand Forks and North Dakota and coming here and putting his feet on the ground, so pretty exciting for the whole community. Ended up being a pretty interesting couple of days, something you never really think of when you were going to sign up for jobs like these. So that's all I have for announcements. So we will move on to item 2, awards, presentations, appointments, and proclamations.
2.1 is a proclamation, Giving Hearts Day, February 8th.
All right, thank you. Whereas the goals of Giving Hearts Day are to raise awareness for the charitable nonprofit sector and its organizations in North Dakota and Northwest Minnesota, to promote online giving, volunteerism, and the donation of goods, and to provide donors with the opportunity to multiply the results of their giving. Whereas Giving Hearts Day is a powerful example of the private sector providing assistance to charitable nonprofit organizations that offer vital services to improve the quality of life for many members of our community. And whereas the charitable nonprofit sector supports individuals and families with quality programs, materials, and funds that promote, encourage, and sustain independence and self-sufficiency. And whereas in order to provide these benefits, charities need ongoing funds, volunteers, and goods to continue providing long-term sustainable services to our residents in need. Whereas their charities have demonstrated a need for collaboration and resources and have joined together for this 24-hour-long fundraising event that is dedicated to inspiring online donation for charities at givingheartsday.org. So now, therefore, I, Brandon Bochensky, Mayor of Grand Forks, North Dakota, do hereby proclaim and designate February 8th, 2028 as Giving Hearts Day, and call upon all public officials, businesses, and community leaders and all Grand Forks residents to observe this day with appropriate programs, recognize charitable nonprofits, their staffs, and volunteers who provide essential services to our community, and support Giving Hearts Day by volunteering or providing financial support to local charities in Grand Forks and across North Dakota and Northwest Minnesota. Thank you. Definitely a great day. If you get a chance, get out and send some money. I know we got an organization that could probably use some money, so Circle of Friends is participating in that day and would be certainly well received. So with that, that's all we've got for item 2. So move on to item 3, public hearings and second readings of ordinances.
3.1, determination of protest relating to Project 8738, paving 10th Avenue North, North 5th Street to 500 feet west. On this item, we did receive and attached is a protest petition. This did come to our office by the deadline of February 2nd, and as this meets the threshold of over 50%, it came in at 69.91%. This body would be looked at to accept this protest petition, and the project would not move forward.
All right, so Mr. Grassi, we still need to open a public hearing on the matter?
Yeah, you should have the public hearing.
Sounds good. So we'll open the public hearing at item 3.1. Anybody here to speak on item 3.1? All right, seeing none, I guess at this time we'd be looking for a motion to accept the petition protest. Would that be correct, or what would the motion need to be, Ms. Storstad?
And I will just add also that you're going to see this item later on in your agenda, 5.8, when you'll be looking at those bids. But for now, I would make the motion to accept the protest petition and that the project will not move forward.
Okay. Got the motion from Ms. Osowski. Do we have a second? Second from Ms. Lunsky. Anybody looking for any further information? Comments,
Are we going to have further discussion on this item, or are we just going to vote on this and move on?
No, we can certainly have further discussion.
So I'm looking at the people that signed the petition to protest, and it's essentially everyone there, including the United Way and Red River Valley Community Action, a couple of our local nonprofits. At what point or how, I have no problem with them signing this petition whatsoever, but it calls to mind that perhaps there was something wrong with what we were trying to do in the first place. Meaning, I'm not saying there's something nefarious going on, just perhaps our approach wasn't right. Was the district smaller than it could have been? And I get that we have a committee that assigns benefit, so what are we going to do about this? Because the road's terrible.
Yeah, Mr. Grassley,
Thank you,
please.
Mayor.
Yeah, if you want to give us some
Member of
further.
the council, I guess the special assessment district was created, according to our standards, as a local street, as opposed to a classified street. The classified streets have bigger districts. We did apply the 80% city share to the project. That goes back to the discussions about supporting the sales tax, and so we have a more generous local share to that. But, reconstruction projects are expensive, but you are doing, a 70 or 80-year fix. Not everybody is always ready to take that move financially at the same time. And so, by state law, the road is able to be protested. They exercise that. We'll go ahead, keep maintaining it. There are lots and lots of streets in town that need this kind of work. So, I guess those dollars will go back into the fund and be available to do, a similar project. But whether, you're doing maintenance on this street that was offered for the money or another street that wasn't, I can't speak fully for Public Works, but I think it's a fair offset that, you're going to be doing that kind of work someplace because there are other streets that are in similar condition.
Sure, I can't recall, which ward is that? Is that Ward 3?
Used to be.
This is Ward 2, okay. Did you hear from any of the,
Yeah, when this was first brought up, I bet like 6 weeks ago, I got a call about it stating that they were going to protest it. They felt that the road was utilized so much more by a lot of other people, and they felt just the area that was assessed was too small.
I heard the same comment from a couple of the people that own property there, but also from an unsolicited person that lives several blocks to the west, called me today and said, I'm not surprised because he said that road because there aren't that many breaks once you start getting farther north. There aren't that many breaks across the railroad tracks. And he suggested to me that that's more of a regional road than it is a local road, which of course is, I believe, why they're protesting this, because they believe that it's more heavily utilized by a broader group of people rather than their local immediate area. So I guess ultimately, you're right, they weren't ready to pay for it today. I'm not sure when that group is going to be ready to pay for this is kind of what I'm worried about, knowing that that road is really in bad shape and it needs to be done. So maybe we want to go back to the drawing board and have a discussion about if we can't change the classification of that street and/or maybe there's something we could do in the interim, do a mill and overlay or something to get us more time. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, Mr. Grasser. You know better than I do.
Yeah, well, I guess the broader question, what would be the next step to get this mitigated in some way?
Well, we're getting to the point this year, it's hard to restart the special assessment process. I would be thinking probably in terms of adding it to maybe the mill and overlay project next year and doing that. It's if you look at the map, it is kind of in an unusual area that the area is not really big. And in any case, special reconstructions are quite a bit pricier. They're about 8 times roughly the cost of a mill and overlay. The problem with the mill and overlay is you got to come back and keep doing them. And we are in a cycle already with the number of mill and overlays we have in town that we could literally spend pretty much all of our available funds just redoing mill and overlays, especially given the fact they don't seem to be lasting as long as they used to. So going back to the original question, I I mean, we could try to add it into a project this year for mill and overlay, or we can take another shot at it next year and include it. It'll be off bid now if we do it from the rest of them. And so it might be better to get economy of scale to package it up as a
So
next year
if
project.
this comes back as another project, or comes back again, without changing our entire special assessment policy, can you make it a bigger special assessment district, or we need to change our entire policy?
We need to change the road classification.
I've got two different answers. One is you can change the policy, but in this particular case, even if you tried to make it wider because the railroad runs, kind of cuts that thing, you'd have to be taking in property that would be very, very unusual, I think. You'd be exposing yourself to the other question about what, why am I in this district and I'm a long ways away? And especially when you explain that you'll also be in another district similarly to that.
Mr. Grasser, one more quick question. The assessments aren't in the packet, but can you give us a rough estimate as to how much of one of the properties, an average property in there, we were asking them to pay? 20 grand?
Yep. I actually have a list here, and it looks like they range anywhere from 1,000 all the way up to, up to 13,000 is the high end.
13,000 is the high end, and we were seeing we were going to actually reconstruct that road with concrete.
Correct.
And see, this is where I have a cognitive dissonance, because $13,000 to get a brand-new road in front of your home or business is cheap compared to the new construction projects that are going down on the south end of town. So this is why I'm confused about the approach and what's going on, and why this whole entire group of individuals would say that this is too much money to spend when the specials down on the south end are $30,000 to $50,000 in front of the residential homes. So, again, that's
I can give you my speculative thoughts on some of that.
Sure.
I can't speak to the individuals in here, but we do see this in the more established areas of town. We worked with Ms. Osowski on what was it, 6th Avenue, or 6th Street up there. And we have some streets that are in poor condition, but when you have a house that is, maybe 50, 60 years old, you're looking at, people look at the value of their house and what they can do with that house relative to the cost of the improvement. And, on the new end of town, you're comparing new values. So it does make it very, very difficult. And some people, if you just moved in and you're stretching your budget, and you don't know if this offer is going to be made this year or in 10 years or whatever, the road is bad, right? But sometimes it is just a matter of affordability. And we do see that again in areas of town where the districts are not overly large and where, the homes have been long established.
Right.
When was the bid opening? I guess to simplify the question, I think a lot of people signed the protest before they even knew what the price was going to be.
Sure.
And looking at the list here, when was the actual bid opening, and when was
I
that?
think the date, I have it, I think the bid opening was the 18th, and I think we actually got the protests on the 23rd, if I remember right. Yeah.
Yeah, but looking at here, there's only 2 people that signed after that, so everyone had signed prior to understanding or maybe there's a
But they
third one.
had received the estimated cost letter,
Yeah,
which
we
is what
had,
they were,
everybody gets a direct mailing with the
Yeah.
cost estimates, and then we actually have an open meeting and our phone numbers, if anybody has questions. So they knew pretty closely what the range of dollars were going to be.
and right now, we're special assessing roads for over 25 years, is that correct? Or is it 20 years? 25 years. So on your high end, your $13,000 home or business, or 13 grand assessment, they're paying $500 a year. Right? So, again, I recognize the $500 isn't nothing, but in terms of having your road redone, it's not, to me, it doesn't seem like this is that big a deal, that this would be the one you'd want to throw yourself on your sword over. I can't understand how we got to this position, so. Good.
Mr. Weber?
Whether we like the reasoning or the action, our job tonight is to accept the petition, right? And we don't really have any choice but to accept that petition. It's a legal petition. I don't know how we would get out of that. Even the people who signed it couldn't redact their names at this point. The petition's in, we have to accept it, I think.
Yeah, certainly, but I would almost be willing to make some phone calls and talk to them and confirm that that's what they actually want, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if they understand the finances. For all we know, they're expecting they have to write a check for $13,000 next month, right? I don't know that. I don't know how they would know. I assume the letter that we sent them explained all that, but I don't know if people read. I don't know.
Right. But we could come back at it next year and try it again and try to do some education between now and next year and see if we get a different result. But for this year,
Okay.
the road stays the way it is, yeah? That's the way they want it?
Correct.
Yeah.
Any further comment, Mr. Glavani?
Just a quick question, does that letter that goes out give them a projected annual impact, or is it just the total?
I believe it gives a range. At this point in time, until we get the bids, the first letter gives a broader range, plus or minus, I think, 25%. After we get bids, we send out another letter that, because we know, we narrow that band, so it's not quite as wide, because that does scare people too, when you have an estimate and then you see something coming in the mail that, perhaps 25% higher than that. So we always do encourage that they wait till the bids come in and we can quickly narrow those numbers down.
Well, and I think it's important, I mean, an 80% cost share too. 80% is being paid for by the rest of the city. 20% is being paid for by that local area. But, clearly, it's not going to happen this year, but let's look at other options because I think that's a road that needs to get definitely done at some point, so. All right, any other comments? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. All right, that's it for item 3. Item 4, citizen comments as they relate to action items. Do we have some comments this evening, Ms. Lundmark?
Yep, I've got 2 for action items. I'm just going to take them in the item number order. So on item 519, Mary Ann Hayward.
Ms. Hayward, please, I'll give it a second so you got your,
Is it okay?
if you want to hand it to, yeah, I guess he's fine, yeah, go ahead. I'll wait to start the clock till everyone has a copy in front of them.
Is this different than what you'd handed us earlier?
Yes.
This is in addition to?
Yep.
Thanks.
Streamlined for tonight.
All right, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Buchanski, President Sandy, and council members, thanks for allowing me to come here again and speak to you about the pet problem in Grand Forks. I started 16 months ago on this issue so I could walk safely in my community, in my neighborhood, without being attacked by the Rottweilers, the Shepherds, the Dalmatians. It was ridiculous. No one believed that there was a pet problem. It took, I'm saddened to say, and I have no beef with the Circle of Friends. They may think I do because I've been on this for a long time. It took what was happening with the Circle of Friends to really bring this to light. But now I think we've made progress. I saw that the city, and you'll talk about it later, I saw that they have a live website where you can pay for licenses for cats and dogs. I'm excited. We're making progress. But I do have some concerns, and I brought those to you tonight so that if you're going to do a contract and update things, everything in your packet I printed off the city website, the pamphlet from the police department that the CSOs hand me when I talk to them, or from the Grand Forks Pet page. So my biggest concern is that I think we need consistency. The items throughout the information that I gave to you, it shows inconsistency. So we need the Circle of Friends, if they're going to be the impound, the city webpage, the Grand Forks Lost and Found webpage, and the brochure that's attached to this. They all have to be the same. And are we going by state legislation or city ordinances? I don't care. I'm not a lawyer, but I am an individual that if you pick my pet up, I'm going to take and bring these inconsistencies to you, so maybe we should take care of them. One is it a 5-day hold or a 4-day hold? The city, I gave you the state chapter, and it tells you it's a 5-day hold. I don't know, maybe we could be different in the city. If you go to the page in there about fines and licenses, you'll see that the city website still shows the fines for the first offense is $101. Pardon me, it's $31, but the brochure that I just picked up is $101. Which is it? I'm going to take and say that you're going to only get $31 from me because that's what the city webpage says. I think we need to figure out who publishes those fines, when do they get talked about, who decides what the fines are going to be, and when does that brochure get updated? And can we put an updated date on it so we all know when were they updated last? The other thing is, if you look in there, the inconsistency of, first of all, I want to really stress, I am so grateful to have gone and seen the live page today. Thank you, the new software. I think we should all be doing a happy dance in here, that we're finally getting there. But then, if you look at the other 2 pages, you're going to see, again, we have some inconsistencies. The one says that if I license my pet, then I will probably avoid the impound, and the police officer or CSO is going to bring the pet to my house. Is that pet going to be fined? Is there going to be documentation written up? How do I know if it's been out once, twice, or 3 times if the wonderful people are just going to deliver it back home? Then on the other brochure, that brochure that's handed out with the inconsistencies, says, I'm going to be fined. Well, which is it? Am I going to be fined first offense, second offense, third offense? I think we need to know, and I don't think it's fair if you do the contract with them again, with the Circle of Friends, we leave them out in Wonderland. So that's what kind of got this thing where I think that's the past employee thought I was after her. I was not. I wanted change so that I can be safe in my community. So I'm optimistic. I hope that you'll look at these, and as you update the city web pages, that you change it and make it all the change. I'm optimistic we're going to get there. And as I told my husband, he says, don't say that. I said, no, I'm going to tell him. I'm really happy that we're getting there. But if I don't see change and I don't see these things changing and they're all consistent, as Arnold Schwarzenegger said, I will be back. Otherwise, I prefer to stay home. Thanks for letting me talk.
Thank you. I think there'll be definitely further discussion on those items.
Next, I have on item 5.2, the syringe service program, Mark Rusted.
5.20, yeah. 20 you meant, yeah. All right, Mr. Rusted, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, members of the City Council. I appreciate it. I'm not here in official capacity. I'm just here as a citizen, father, person that grew up here. I would really, really appreciate a vote to either substantially decrease or eliminate the needle exchange program here in Grand Forks and Grand Forks County. I know that our commission sent you guys a letter. I believe it was roughly a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, stating that we voted 3-2 to urge you to reconsider the position of continuing on with that program. I know it's going to be addressed tonight. I also want to specifically thank Commissioner Osowski for basically depantsing this particular program and kind of showing it for what it is. I think that well, I've been involved now for a little over a year, and there's been a lot of very benign topics that I've been involved in where I've gotten like 2 sides. One, I'll get a number of emails, phone calls, or text messages stating they're very much in favor of my position, and then on the other side, much the opposite. This is the outlier. Everyone that's reached out to me has been kind of out in front of this a little bit, along with Councilperson Osowski. This is the outlier that 100% of the feedback has been, get rid of this. We don't need this in our community. This is not Grand Forks. And I think that these services, I know that these services are available in multiple other cities in this state. And if people need them that badly, they can go to those cities, in my opinion. And that's where I'll leave it. And I appreciate everyone's time. And I urge you to please at least dial it down and maybe put some teeth behind it with the help of Attorney Gosted. so that it can't be ramped back up to what it is today, or just eliminate it entirely. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Rested. Is that it for comments? Do we have any, was there some online comments or emails that were sent in as well? So we have
Yes,
that
there are two
attached.
comments that are attached to your agenda.
All right, thank you. Move on to item 5. That will be action items. Let me pull up my... We've got listed for administration to poll 5.6, 5.7, 5.8, 5.18, 5.19, and 5.20. Was there any other items council wanted to poll for further discussion this evening?
5.4.
5.4. All right, hearing no others, we'd be looking for a motion to approve items 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.5, 5.9, 5.10, 5.11, 5.12, 5.13, 5.14, 5.15, 5.16, and 5.17. I get a motion to approve that. Got a motion from Mr. Weigel, second from Ms. Osowski. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. So we'd be left with 5.4, 5.6, 5.7, 5.8, 5.18, 5.19, and 5.20. Ms. Dorstad.
5.4, 2024 CSG program.
All right, thank you. Ms. Osowski.
I guess my only comment about this is I oppose the Global Friends donating, or I oppose us donating to the Global Friends. I heard, I made statements at the last meeting about how until every child in our community has a bed to sleep in and goes to bed, with a full stomach, that we shouldn't be donating our tax dollars to immigrants. Now, I heard a wonderful story from the fire department the other day where, first off, they have a fund that their employees contribute to. It is the fire department charity fund, and I've heard lots of wonderful stories, but just after our last meeting, they did run into the exact same situation where they responded to a call, and there were kids sleeping on an air mattress and the parents were sleeping on the floor. And these are our own citizens and they're already a part of our community. And so the fire department took their own charity funds that they all contribute to, and they bought them a bed. They each didn't get their own individual beds or anything like that. And so I just find it really hard to contribute to bringing immigrants into our community where we are setting them up with homes, foods, benefits, and beds. So I just think that everybody should be aware that everybody that's already inside of our community doesn't have a bed to sleep on. So, thank you.
I'll move to approve the funding recommendations herein.
Okay, we got a motion, a second to approve as is. Any further comment? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1 with Osowski dissenting.
5.6, bid award project 7978, reconstruct Washington Street from 5th Avenue South to 1st Avenue North. This item was postponed from the November 20th, 2023
All right,
meeting.
Mr. Grasser, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council. As noted, this came straight to City Council because it already had been to the COW and council actions back in November. This is a North Dakota DOT bid. This is because it's a state highway, the city share is 10%. The DOT did open bids on January 26th. The engineer's estimate was about $10.5 million. The apparent low bidder was KPH. Their bid was $12,735,185.80. And they're the apparent low bidder. I say apparent because the DOT is still evaluating. When you're doing the federal projects, you've got to meet minority business enterprise requirements or good faith efforts, et cetera, et cetera. The DOT is currently evaluating that right now to make a final determination. I thought we'd know today, but we don't know yet today what their disposition on that matter is. The city's action is concurrence with their award anyway. We're not actually awarding, we're concurring with an award. So if in fact the DOT decides to not award, we'll bring it back to a committee or council meeting as soon as we know, and we can take whatever appropriate action might be. Generally, they'll either rebid or they'll recommend awarding to the second bidder. It's usually where, those things will end up. So with that, there is a budget amendment, though, if you notice on the staff report, but we are recommending at this point in time with our current information that we concur in the DOT award with the apparent low bidder.
Thank you, Mr. Grasser. Mr. Cavani? Motion. Move approval. A motion to approve. Ms. Osowski, seconds. Any further discussion on the item? All right, thank you, Mr. Grasser. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
5.7, bid award from Project 8733, 2024, English Coulee Diversion Cleaning.
All right, thank you. 5.7, we have a little better news on that. The bids, remember we went out to do some cleaning of the English Coulee diversion, which is part of our flood control project. We went out for bids. We did open them on January 25th. We had 9 bidders. It's been a long time since I've seen 9 bidders on a project, but we had a really good cross-section of bidders. We also got a really good price. The engineer's estimate was $339,000. The low bidder was MNL, and their low bid was $182,120. So they're about 54% below the engineer's estimate, so we're pretty happy with that one.
We're confident that they're going to get the job done.
We've done some follow-up phone calls because we haven't worked with them on a regular basis. They seem like they have a solid plan and work history.
Well, that's good. It's good news. We don't often hear that from you, Mr. Grasser, so it's good to hear. Got a motion to approve from President Sandy. He likes saving money. So does Ms. Osowski. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
5.8, bid award for Project 8738, District Number 777, Reconstruct 10th Avenue North.
So are we just looking for a vote to reject the bid at this point?
At this point, that would be the recommended action. If there's any other questions, we kind of went through it pretty well on the public hearing side, but if there's any other questions, I can attempt to answer. But our recommendation is to reject the bids.
All right, we got a motion to reject the bid for Ms. Osowski, second for Mr. Cavani. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
5.18, Riverside Pool Design Agreement with the EAPC.
Ms. Parva, I heard you're going to keep the good news rolling, so please.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. We were able to have a meeting last week with Mithra Pools. They were here to talk about the aquatic center, and they had some ideas on what we could possibly do to renovate Riverside Pool. So we just want to take a step and pause for a moment, not award the contract right now to EAPC, but bring something back to you in the near future. Hopefully, we can work together with them and EAPC and possibly do something a little bit different and more creative and more cost efficient.
Less expensive.
Less expensive.
Same result.
Yes.
Okay.
Are you looking for a motion to postpone?
Do you want to just a date indefinite, or do we just want to?
You can choose a date. We just haven't been able to connect all parties at this time, so I'm not sure if it would be the next meeting.
Yeah, Mr. Phelan, did you want to set a date? Just, okay.
I move we postpone indefinitely.
Got a motion from President Sandy, second from Vice President Weber. Any further discussion? With the knowledge that we're not, obviously this is going to move along, we just don't have a date set, so.
Correct.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
5.19, City of Grand Forks Services and Facilities for Stray and Abandoned Animals. Updated staff report is attached.
Mr. Phelan.
Mayor Brzezinski and members of the City Council, over the last week and a half, obviously a lot has happened at Circle of Friends, and some tough decisions have been made. And so I just wanted to let you know that Maureen Storstad, your finance director, city clerk, Sherry Lundmark, city attorney Dan Gost, and I have met with the Circle of Friends on a couple of occasions over the last week and a half or so. And as part of that agreement, they're also here this evening. We're going to ask, we've met with their staff and also some of their board members, and 4 of them are here this evening. And we've asked Mr. Doffett, who is, we used to be the board president and now is the interim CEO, to come up and give you an overview once our presentation and update is complete. They have approved the agreement at a recent meeting, the one that is amended, and I just wanted to hit some of the highlights, and Mr. Gosted's here if you want to get through some of the particulars, but essentially, it allows the Circle of Friends to retain the license fee revenue collected on the city's behalf, and Marine estimates that to be between $5,000 and $10,000 a year in addition for revenue. We also have put in place a monthly payment plan for both the half mil and also the $60,000 that is contained in there. So this 24 agreement provides an increase from that $60,000, I think it was about $56,000 in 23. And obviously the half mil, I think the mil has gone up 8-point-something%, so they get that increase as we move forward. The other thing is we talked about, as we previously talked about, the $250 for veterinarian care, that's included in this payment. So if you look at the half mil plus the $60,000, that's on the order of about $198,000 to $199,000 a year. So anything less than the $250 or less are part of what we're paying for on a monthly basis. And then anything above and beyond that would require city approval. And right now we're using the police department as the approval process because that's the agency that really represents the city of Grand Forks in that regards. Certainly, we're going to find out, how much medical care is really required through the police department and all the things that we do. We don't have great numbers on, what may be needed, but we'll know. Obviously, we already know this month what's been happening. We'll know in future months, but certainly we'll have more administrative contact and decision-making as part of that. We'll certainly require and lean on our police officers that are in the field, providing judgment calls, judgment recommendations about what needs to be done. We were informed that in order to, from one extreme of euthanasia to applying pain medication requires a veterinarian. So if there is an accident involving a dog or a cat, whether it's pain relief or ultimately euthanasia, that requires a veterinarian. So one of our concerns that we have followed up with the 4 area veterinarian clinics. Their ability to respond on weekends and after hours is limited right now. And so we are going to work through that. And one of the things that I talked to Sherry and Maureen is what the suggestion is that we're going to organize a meeting with all the various veterinarian clinics and see what we can work out. And Councilmember Osowski asked, what did we do before we had a veterinarian services? And I think that's how it worked, is that all the various veterinarian clinics worked together to try to find a way to have weekend and after hours capacity. What we all further understand is, like with a lot of workforce, it's harder to get people to work weekends and after hours. So times have changed, and so we'll have to work through, and maybe we can, on behalf of the city of Grand Forks and the greater community, maybe we can get them to step up to perform those services. Right now, we haven't had an issue, and we've been out without a veterinarian over the last week plus, and there hasn't been issues, but we know things are going to come up. Whether it's 5 or 50 or something greater than that, we're going to need that kind of service. So we are going to follow up with that. Likely that would be an additional agreement beyond the Circle of Friends. So if we reach an agreement with veterinarian services to include weekend and after hours, that would be an agreement that we would look to sign on behalf of the city of Grand Forks, not through Circle of Friends. The other thing that Mr. Sandy has talked about, or Council President Sandy talked about, is getting online payments, and we already heard from the citizen about that's up and going. So those are all the things that we've done over the last week and a half, working in partnership with the Circle of Friends and trying to get a challenging situation moving forward. And that with that, if you have any questions of Dan, Sherry, or Maureen or I, or if we have anything further to add, then I would ask Mr. Doffett to come up and give us a firsthand update from Circle of Friends.
I've just got one question, maybe for Mr. Gossett, or maybe it's yourself, Todd. We've got item B under scope of services talks about the medical care. How would that change? And if we've got a secondary agreement with some other veterinarian services? How are we going to parse out who's paying for what?
Mayor and council members, I would anticipate that if there were those type of services that were off hours, there would be additional compensation to the vet that would perform those services. I think the $250 would be more, I guess I'm not a veterinarian, but it would be the more day-to-day type of services that are provided. So, and again, it may be that the excess, the over $250 may become mooted by this second agreement, right? If we're using the vet services agreement and paying for those services, those may be the costs over and above the $250. So we're not going to pay the vet for that services and Circle of Friends. One or the other would get paid. So they'd have to work in concert to one another.
The other thing I did hear, Mayor Bochansky, is from Area Vet, is the 250 might be a little light. So if we do have to take an animal, dog or cat, into a veterinarian, they thought that was probably a little light. But at least it sets a bar, the 250. And we saw that in other city agreements. That was kind of the bar. So, and I think Councilmember Osowski had a good point, is that we need to help manage this better day to day. And if we set a bar, we'll kind of know what's going on day to day on what kind of services are needed moving forward.
All right, any questions for Mr. Douthit? All right.
Mayor Bochinsky, members of the City Council, Chris Douthit, acting CEO with Circle of Friends. And how did that position come to be? In our bylaws, it states that if the chief executive officer is relieved for whatever reason, a member of the executive committee will become the acting CEO. And we have an executive committee of 4 members. I was being the chair of the board discussion. I became the acting CEO. I will tell you that seek legal counsel so that when we meet, it is my plan at the present time, because I'm acting this capacity. When we have meetings, that is not my plan to vote in those. It was recommended that if it's short term, that's one thing, but she was saying 2 weeks to a month. So my plan is until May to not vote on any action items that we take as the acting CEO, so I can separate the two positions. Some of the things that we have done as a collective group is, as you know, our CEO was let go. Our chief medical officer was let go. Our chief operating officer then determined what the staffing would be, and we are presently with 4 employees, the chief operating officer and 3 employees. I was out there today. They do have a couple of employees that continue to volunteer because of the love of the work that they do. We have an adoption center, which of course was closed. I will tell you that we have completely emptied that out, with the exception of there's a copier and a water machine, which we will take care of as quickly as we can. I myself, our chief financial officer Judy, and a member met with the bank, reviewed where the status for the loan is that we have, what options will be available. The bank is going to ask for some reports from us. They're taking those reports and they will come back to us with what options we may have. I would let you know that our chief financial, Judy Marvin, is here. She does have a budget that she has put together at the present time with the funding from the city, the funding that we received from the county, and some of the fundraising that we've received. We're presently operating at about approximately a $300 a day loss. So we certainly do have some work to do to maintain the operation, to provide the services that the community and the citizens need. I believe I've covered the majority of the items at the present time. I would certainly entertain any questions, and again, I would ask our staff, and we do have 2 additional board members present, if you would like to entertain any questions with them, or our chief financial officer or our chief operating officer.
Sounds good. Any questions at this time from council? I guess the one question, do we intend to ink this contract and to move forward? Is there any adjustments that you guys had needed or had seen, or what would be the timeline to get that rolling so we can get the payment out to Circle of Friends?
Thank you. we certainly are in a position to sign and move forward with the city. Absolutely. So as far as the timeline, unless there's any cause, and we're ready to sign. I think that means sign, right?
Yeah, please, President Sandy, please.
The adoption shelter or the adoption center on Washington, are you bound by the lease payments on that, or have you negotiated something, or how are you doing there?
My understanding is, Mayor Buczynski, City Council members, Sandy members, my understanding is that they are going to work with us, and once we can close out, that they would work to not have us pay a full month. That's our hope, and that's what, that's presently what we're hoping to do and planning to do.
Sure. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions?
A quick comment.
Or comments, yeah.
The agreement that we're talking about can be terminated by either party with 60 days written notice, so we get to work together.
Yes, sir.
Towards success.
May I make one more comment? I apologize if I'm stepping out of line.
No, please.
Okay. I want you to know that in this capacity, in our meeting with the city, I turned to the members of the city, Mrs. Storstead, the attorney, I apologize, Goss, thank you, and Mr. Phelan. And I did also, I am going to share with our board that if any of these individuals believe that I'm not stepping up to the role that's required to assure that we move forward, that if I receive a call from a member of the city or a member of our board or our collective board says, Chris, you're not doing the job that we need, I will step aside, and I will let you know that I presently am planning to remove myself from the board at our annual meeting in May. However, if I'm not serving people the way that they would prefer and want, then I will listen and do as they ask.
Thank you. Are we looking for a motion to approve the contract, and then we could probably sign it tonight if you get that done?
We'd like you to approve the revised amended agreement this evening.
Sounds good. We got a motion from Ms. Vice President Weber and a second from Ms. Osowski. Any further discussion? President Sandy, please.
Mr. Delta, the other board members, so you've mentioned that you'll be leaving in May.
Yes, sir.
What about the other board members?
Mayor Buczynski, Councilmember Sandy, members of the council. That's a great question. So what we would need to do is, that would be a personal decision for them. So what I would like you to know on that is our bylaws currently state, and that anyway, I'll cut to the chase. On February 13th, we are going to have a meeting, and we're going to amend one of the bylaws that had a governance decision in it, which we no longer have a governance committee. So we're going to hopefully pass that. It has to be voted on, and if that's passed, then we would add an additional 2 members, bringing us to a board of 7. And then going forward, if we lose a member, leaves the board for whatever reason, that member would be able to be replaced presently, and that would be, the replacements only go until the annual meeting. So if somebody's brought in November, they would have to be elected at the annual meeting, and those positions are appointed by the board.
I'm sorry, I'm always the bad guy. Don't take this the wrong way.
No, sir.
How do we convince the people of Grand Forks that the board is going to be operating the right way if the same board members continue on the board?
Mayor Buczynski, Councilmember Sandy, members of the council, that's a fair question, Mr. Sandy. And I would say one of the things that's taking place as we speak is I've had some people reach out to me. We've got an outstanding member who is reaching out, working with others in some of the fundraising activities that we can do. We've been contacted about using our medical facility in a way to assist others. That's in early conversations. Those other board members whom I will say that I've had a great working relationship with, that would be their decision. However, if the trust isn't there and it's not elected by the citizenry, then I guess what people would need to do is look within and say, am I justified to remain on this board, or should I look at the options available to myself? It's a very, very fair question, Mr. Sandy. It really was. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? All right, seeing none, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Douthit.
5.20 APC Project Syringe Service Program discussion.
All right, Ms. Wall, you taking the lead on this? Please.
Good evening, Mayor Boczynski, members of City Council. I want to extend a gratitude to those council members that were able to join us on a tour this last week. A great question that came up in one of the tours that provided an important opportunity for clarification around the model of the SSP. And the 1-for-1 plus model is not a 2-for-1 plus model. So for example, if a client returns 20 syringes, they can get 30. If they return 40 syringes, they can get 50. So there is a maximum, the plus of 10 syringes. So I apologize if that was miscommunicated at the last meeting. Secondly, as a new director and getting to know my team, this includes conversations about why we do what we do, why we come to work in the morning, and specifically those employees that work within the SSP, they come to work for that client engagement. And so that means connections to resources, whatever that may be, housing, food, treatment, different things like that. So those small wins of those clients, as identified in the title of the program, are shared by that support system. Thirdly, I've heard a lot about the need for local data. I'm certainly willing to lead a work group to dive deep into what requirements would be needed to kind of coalesce local data. This includes conversations around data use agreements of the different entities that we'd be looking at. And then finally, included in your packet is an updated handout that overviews recent discussions, concerns, potential alternatives, changes with a final recommendation to maintain the program in its current form for the various considerations listed on the bottom of the second page. And with that, I can take questions.
I'll move approval of the continuation of the existing program as is and a rejection of the request from the county.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. I'll open up for comment.
I would hope that I'd like to make some changes, and maybe I can do that now, Mr. Weber, or talk about some possible changes, and maybe you'd be open to amending your motion, maybe not, but I'll go forward with it. I looked at, in your pamphlet that you provided, it says NDCC 2301-44 prohibits collection of personally identifying data from the participants. I looked that up and I didn't see it. So do you have any, is it hidden somewhere that I can't find it, or does it fall under, the only thing that I could really see is it talked about register the program annually in the manner prescribed by the Department of Health and Human Services, or does it explicitly say that you cannot collect personally identifying information?
I would like to call the day-to-day expert up here, if you would entertain that. Michael Dulitz.
Councilmember Wagle, it is written specifically into that law under one of the subsections. I don't have the law right in front of me, but it is explicit in there.
Perfect. I just read it quick, so I just wanted to make sure. Some of the changes I was hoping, obviously this failed last time when we tried to end it, but hoping some of my friends up here might be open to some changes. Instead of the 1-for-1 plus model, I'd ask that it just goes to a 1-to-1 with a limit of 5 to be given out at any certain time. I know earlier we talked about getting people in to get them to resources that may help them, whether that's addiction treatment, housing, or some of these other things. I think that follows that method, that it gets them coming back to you more often if they only get 5 needles at a time. As far as the items that are given out in the pack, I would ask that it be the syringes, snacks, disposal containers in naloxone. And then I would ask that there could be some type of check sheet. If somebody comes in and they receive their syringes and you referred them to somebody for treatment, or you referred them to somebody for housing options, that, again, that information isn't taken, personal information isn't taken, but we can see where these people are being asked to go to, who to talk to and whatnot. So those would be my recommendations for the program moving forward.
So are you seeking an amendment to the motion right now?
I am.
If I may, first of all, with regard to the North Dakota Century Code, the line is provide syringe, needle supply, and injection supply, distribution, and collection without collecting or recording personally identifiable information. So that's the line that's in
What line
in
is it,
Century Code.
Mr. Weber?
It's
Well, before you guys can, I just want to make clear, though, if that's a motion, that he's making a motion to amend, I want to see if there's a second first, so we can open up the discussion.
Not the original motion.
Right now, he asked for an amendment to the motion, so we'd vote on the amendment to that first, I believe, but we need to have a second before we open up the conversation. Would that be correct? Is that correct, Mr. Gasted?
It would be, you're voting on we've got a motion to amend the motion. That's what you're voting on.
That's what we would be voting at that
Not
point,
the
yeah.
motion itself until it's been, the amendment has been approved.
So we should seek a second on that before further discussion, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, we've got a second. All right, now, please, Mr. Weber.
I'm ready to move forward. I was just pointing out the statement in North Dakota Century Code is under 23-01-44, subsection 4, line G.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to make clear what the motion to amend, if you could just clear that one more time here quickly so everyone's aware of what those changes would be to the program,
Yep.
to that amendment, so that's clear for the clerk.
Yep, it'd be a 1-to-1 exchange only with a max of 5 given out at any single time. Within the kit that they receive, it would be the syringes, snacks, disposal containers, and naloxone only. And that, I don't think the check sheet should be thrown in this. I think that's more of an administrative thing that we can look at doing in the future, but it'd be those.
Okay, Ms. Osel, that's how you understood it, Ms. Osowski?
I guess there would be one thing that I would like to add to Danny's. I don't know if I can even do that though right now.
Well, unless Danny had one other thing that he was
What
meaning to say
about
that he didn't
the
get.
test strips for the drugs, so they can.
I'd be fine with that.
To see how pure they are, is that what the test strips do? Or make sure that they're not laced with fentanyl?
Yeah, it would be there's two different test strip kits. One is for xylazine and one is for fentanyl, and it just detects the presence of each one.
I'd be fine adding that as well.
Okay.
And
You have that, Ms. Lundmark or Ms. Storstad? Okay.
real good. So in relation to that motion, the one-to-one exchange, when I was in on Friday, I asked about the one-to-one exchange. Why are there additional needles given, and how many additional needles are given? Can you speak to that, Ms. Wall, about why we don't go with one-to-one at present, why that's best practice to give the additional needles?
Yep, the additional needles are a form of trust building with these clients. And so by giving them extra needles to meet their immediate need, that starts to build a relationship with them. And so then once we talk about those immediate needs, we can talk about long-term, about what their potential change could be. So when their immediate needs aren't met or there's increased barriers to to access, that is when people either don't use the program as intended or we lose those connection points for engagement.
Very good. And can you tell us what's currently in the kit? Because I think that there was a kit, it's been changed. What's the difference between what's being proposed and what's currently in the kit? What would we be changing?
Yep, the proposed kit is a severely scaled down what is offered. Each item in the current kit has an intention, whether that's to reduce infection, to further reduce transmission of communicable diseases. So that includes different like filtering devices, whether that is directly on the syringe or cotton items.
I'm sorry, so
Yeah.
there's an intention letter, you said?
No, sorry, each item in the current kit has an intention.
An intention,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
whether
Thanks.
that's to reduce infection risk or reduce communicable disease risk. Thanks for allowing me to clarify. So those would all go away if we go with the proposed model.
Is that the intention of the amendment, is to to do away with those things that are currently helping to reduce infection?
No, I think the intention of this is to bring some, what I would say, maybe some more common sense to this. I look at what's been in that. We give them something to put their methamphetamine or narcotic of choice into to heat it up. We give them everything they could possibly need to use narcotics. I don't know that the city of Grand Forks should be providing all those items. We give them, we give people strips to test to make sure they have good drugs and not bad drugs. The only way we can guarantee that, and I've never said this before because to me it's ridiculous, would be to provide them the drugs, right? That way we know they are good. We would never do that. What I
Sounds
think
like a drug exchange program.
it
You
would
bring
be.
us your bad drugs and we'll give
Yeah,
you the
we'll make
good
sure they're
ones.
good ones.
Hold it, are we giving out drugs
No.
at the needle
No.
exchange program? So let's not go there, because that's silly to
What I'm
suggest that
saying,
we're
Mr.
giving
Weber,
people
is-
drugs, right? But we're not giving drugs, right?
Correct, yeah.
Right, okay.
Not that I'm aware
I'm
of.
sorry, thanks.
Let's let Mr. Weigel finish, then we'll continue.
Like I said, I'm willing to continue this program, but we've seen what it's come with. We had condoms in there, we had dental dams, we had things that they can heat up their drug of choice. I think it's going beyond what I maybe intended it to be at one point. And our ideas of that could be different.
Are condoms still going to be part of the kit then?
That would be, with the current motion, no, we would remove condoms.
Right, with the current motion, but
Right.
currently the kits do include condoms.
They're offered, our kits are distributed kind of on an as-needed basis. We don't give items to clients that they're not going to use. So it's not automatically given to them. It's a choice.
Is it common practice for public health agencies to distribute condoms?
Yeah, we've had condoms available to clients and community members for decades.
Okay.
So you don't have to be an intravenous drug user to get a condom from public health?
Correct.
That makes perfect sense.
All right, I want to just jump, but Mr. Veen's on there, if I could just, did you ever hand up Mr. Veen? Just since you're off the room, it's easier to do it as I notice it.
Yes, I do. Just a quick question, maybe for Mr. Weigel, but you talk about one-to-one max with 5. Can you give me a little bit better understanding why those numbers, like especially the 5?
I just thought we've heard public health and others talk about wanting to provide people services and getting them in there, and I thought 5 would be a good number for them to visit frequently to exchange their needles so that they can continue to talk to them about providing them services.
Yep.
I'm not sure how many needles a day
What's
people
that?
use, if they're injecting heroin or methamphetamine or some other type of narcotic.
And maybe for the wall, how many are we giving now and what's, I don't know, what's best practice?
The amount distributed is based on the client, so if they are, have built up as the 1-for-1+ model builds, and they've built trust within the program, they can get what their use desire, or what their use supports. And so best practice would be to meet people where they're at. To continue to engage them in conversation. One particular question that's asked for clients is, what does it look like to cut your use in half? So that is a question that can just help prompt either conversation or conversations about change or, yep, I'm ready to change at this point.
I guess I was just wondering, I'm trying to understand what number makes sense, and obviously it's an individual thing. It's not a set that works for everyone.
Very
But
much so.
too low of a number means you'd have to come quite a bit more often and possibly make it less usable.
I've got one of the, if I could jump, are you done, Mr. Veen? For the
Yeah,
moment?
that's fine.
I guess one question that I have, we talk about harm reduction and the importance of that when we talk about this program, and we want those touch points. One of the main keys of harm reduction is those touch points with the users. Okay, what is to stop one person from coming in and bringing needles for 5 or 6 that are all living together in a house? They're the only person coming in, they're going back with 50, 60 needles. What's stopping that today?
So I think nothing's stopping it. However, that one engagement with that individual is building trust with that individual. I think last week we had a client bring a friend. So they were both using at the time. One was not a client, and we were both the staff members working the SSP were able to have change conversations with both of them and make a plan as to what that looks like.
So we don't know for sure even if the person coming in is a drug user. I mean, we can look at their physical appearance, but it could be the dealer that's coming in and getting needles and handing out drugs and the needles and collecting them all back. We wouldn't have any way to tell that outside of physical appearance.
Right, and in conversation. So once you build trust with an individual, you can talk about their use, and that's individualized.
Yeah. Let's go President Sandy and then Ms. Lunsky.
What's the average number of syringes that we hand out to an individual that comes in?
It would be 30.
30. And for how long does that last that individual?
I think it's highly dependent on,
Mr. Dulitz, on average, how often does somebody come in?
Councilmember Sandy, it really does vary widely.
I'm asking you to provide your opinion as the expert.
So the time that it would last someone for 30 syringes could vary from 3 days to 3 months, really. An individual, the median number of visits, I believe, is at 7 for individuals. So it isn't like people are coming frequently for a long period of time. It's generally as part of like a change or a transition in that individual's life.
So let me get this straight. You're telling me that the average individual, the median number of visits is 7. Is that per year or per month?
Since the program has started, the median number, like when you look at all the clients that we've served, the median number of visits among clients is 7. So there's a fair amount of turnover on the clients that we do see in the program.
Got it. So is that good?
Councilmember Sandy, I do view turnover of clients as being a good thing because that's indicative that change is happening. So we aren't necessarily just serving the same people over and over again. Generally, the clients, if I'm looking kind of broadly, they fall into 3 different categories. Clients who are ready for change, and we help them with that change, and they, only come in for, 1, 2, 3 visits. The clients that are thinking about change, and we're working on helping equip them to get them there. Those are the ones that you see, between 5 and 10 visits probably, and the ones that aren't ready for change, and those are the ones that we see a lot more frequently.
So, Ms. Wall, you mentioned earlier that you'd be interested in a group discussion about what sort of information we might be interested in.
yeah.
Regardless of what happens here, I'd be interested in serving and helping. I don't, as I told Mr. Weber earlier, I don't know what questions to ask. Honestly, don't have the faintest idea what sort of metrics we should be looking for or what makes for a successful syringe service program. I honestly have no idea, but I'd be interested in learning. And so regardless of what happens tonight, I'd be interested in furthering that discussion. Thank you,
Thank
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Ms. Lunsky.
You also help diabetics, right? They can come in and get needles?
Yep.
So 5 needles for a diabetic wouldn't make it through a weekend, correct?
Depending on the diabetes and what the prescription says, but yes, that's a very low number for a diabetic.
So would you still want 5 for a diabetic?
How
You can't-
many are diabetics?
It's a low number. I think 5 on the regular, 5 clients regularly come in.
This,
I think when I look at, I think I'm mainly talking about the illicit drug use is 5 needles. I'm not so much talking about a medical condition that requires the use of insulin.
But I don't think you guys don't always ask, do you, if someone comes in for a needle exchange program?
The challenge becomes if someone does come and request needles for diabetes, we don't have an avenue because we can't ask for personal identifying information to confirm that they would be for diabetes.
and this might not be a question, or I mean, you may be able to give us an idea, but how many drugstores, grocery, convenience stores, how many places in town can a person purchase these needles? I did a quick Amazon search. You can get 100 needles for $12 delivered to your house.
You cannot buy them at CVS without a prescription.
How many places are they not, you can buy them on Amazon, you can't buy them at CVS? I mean, where in town can you buy them already? And,
I know of
Have
one
access.
pharmacy downtown. I haven't checked other.
okay, but they are available for purchase and they're relatively inexpensive.
I believe so, yes.
But you need a prescription.
Do you need a prescription at this one downtown to get in?
I didn't call.
You don't need a prescription on Amazon, I know that much.
You do it at CVS.
At CVS, okay, at least at one you do, all right. Mr. Kavami?
How would you say you came about the list of items that are offered in the kit or not in the kit, I guess, based on the client? Where did that list come from?
It's a good question I would ask. Because the program was instilled prior to me coming, I would welcome Michael.
Councilmember Kwame, the list of items that we provide are pretty standard to syringe service programs. So most of the items that we currently provide were based off of what we learned from other places that were doing it, and what we've learned based off of kind of the progression of evidence to get to where we are. There were some items that we had started providing based off of client feedback. Getting feedback from your clients is considered to be an important part and part of our work plan to be approved by the state. And so we did incorporate some of those supplies when there was some pushback to those supplies being offered, such as things like the lubricant, the needleless syringes, things like that. We did opt to discontinue those to fit the mission, and based off of the feedback we received from you.
Another question, I guess, is, in that list, is there a how-to on how to use drugs?
Councilmember Kavami, no, there is not a how-to in there.
So I would say, how many of your people that come are first-time drug users?
Councilmember Kavami, I'm not aware of anybody that has come to our program that has stated that they're a first-time drug user.
So you'd argue that they found stuff somewhere to use the illicit, drugs, right? And they're now coming to you, presumably to find a safe alternative to using them, but they could just go wherever.
Correct. If they say went to a pharmacy to get those syringes, they wouldn't be getting any opportunities for those connections. They wouldn't even necessarily have to leave with a Sharps container for those, so they could just dispose of their syringes in the garbage. This at least incentivizes people to bring supplies back.
Another question, excuse me, if a client comes in and says, what drugs can I use with this? Do you answer that?
We don't, we ask them about the drugs that they use, like that's part of the first visit process, but we don't say in the opposite direction how they use them, so.
Are you ever asked questions along those lines of, is the proper techniques or proper things to use, or am I doing this right? I mean, what questions do you get?
So there are some supplies that we provide that are not, that are intended to use safer. So one example that comes to mind is filtration that goes on the end of a syringe that significantly decreases the chance of injecting bacteria. So that is something that an individual wouldn't be familiar with. So we show them how to put it on the syringe and that general technique, but that isn't related to how they inject drugs or anything like that. That's just to how to be safer if they're making that decision.
So does using that provide them a better experience using drugs?
No, aside from reducing harm.
Okay. Good for now.
President Sandy, please.
So to Mr. Weigel's comment about the reason he's wanting to limit to 5, and then Ms. Linsky's question about diabetics, aren't there differences in needles? You're giving away 3 different, if I recall correctly, 3 different needles, right? Can be requested?
Councilmember Sandy, we do give away 3 different needles. They are all insulin needles by label.
They're all insulin, but there are different needles, right? So some people that are using diabetics would probably prefer one needle over another?
Yes, but they would be pretty similar in what the preference would be.
But do the intravenous drug users typically choose one style of needle, or is it across the board?
Councilmember Sandy, it is really across the board. There's different, or we have 2 different brand styles, 2 different needle styles.
So do you know how many of which needle of each type you're giving out?
Councilmember Sandy, we do record that. We record that in our paper, on paper, and then it doesn't go into our data. But we do have that information available. We know based off of what we go through, the size or the type that we go through the most. So based off of what we have to order.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Dulitz, you mentioned at another time, you just talked about having needles returned to you guys, which is a good way, but is it only that 80% of them are returned, roughly? Is that what I recall from a prior meeting?
Councilmember Weigel, correct. We're at 80.6% since the program has started. When I look at one-for-one style exchanges, the data that I've seen from other places, they get it up to about 90% in the best run one-for-one exchange programs.
So if there's 1,000 needles, there's still 200 that are somewhere out there that could be in a park, in the trash can that our city employees are having to deal with at times. They could be anywhere. We don't know where those 200 are.
Correct, but there is also sharps containers out in the community to go along with those, and so that increases the chance that someone's going to do the right thing in the moment and put them in that sharps container. I worry a lot more about small quantities of sharps going out in the community than the larger quantities because they're more likely to be stored incorrectly.
I worry about all sharps as my son's playing in a park or somewhere in the community. I worry about that because I have found sharps in a park. I had an enclosed trailer stolen with people living in it, and I found 12 loaded syringes in it. And so they are out there. They are in our community just being disposed of. In my experience, people that are under the influence of narcotics aren't typically making the best decisions to begin with. And so I do believe that these sharps could be disposed of not in a proper way that we would want them. And so that 20% does somewhat worry me.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Are our syringes identifiable? Like, can you tell the difference when somebody brings a syringe in if it's one that they got from public health versus somewhere else?
Councilmember Sandy, no. Aside from things like, if it's in one of our pocket-sized sharps containers, then we know it's probably from us, and we can count it as such, but otherwise, no. An individual could use Easy Touch syringes for insulin just as easily as they could use them for, things from us.
In fact, when you receive needles, you receive them in the container, and you don't go through and pull them out and count them. You just weigh them to determine how many needles are in the container, right?
Correct, Councilmember Weber. We do a visual inspection to look in there, into the sharps container, and then we do shake the sharps container, but we don't reach in there. That's very much a safety concern. But we do, make sure that what they're bringing back is what we're expecting.
It's actually required by our state legislature for the Department of Human Services to create a needle exchange program, and then to authorize entities in specific areas to carry out a needle exchange program. This isn't something we just made up on our own. This is required by North Dakota Century Code. And those counties that are authorized to provide such a program are areas at risk of an increase or potential increase in prevalence of Hep C, HIV, and just generally deemed to be medically appropriate in that community. And so when our community, our city and county, initiated the needle exchange program here, it was done under the review of the State Department of Human Services. It's been suggested that we should just have people go somewhere else. We don't want that here, but it would mean driving at least to Fargo or somewhere further. There are, there's five programs in the state, Fargo being the nearest one. But the State Department of Human Services has deemed that this is an appropriate community for a state-mandated program, right? Am I understanding that correct?
State-authorized program.
State-authorized. But the State Department of Human Services is obligated by the North Dakota Century Code to develop this program and then deem who is appropriate to provide this service.
Correct, and we had to go through a process to receive this, and then there's an ongoing process for renewal every year.
Mr. Mayor? So what year was this program implemented?
Councilmember Weigel, it was started in October of 2019.
And so the state reached out to Grand Forks Public Health, or did Grand Forks Public Health reach out to the state to start this program?
Grand Forks Public Health reached out to the state in response to a concerning increase in hepatitis C in the community.
So there is no state mandate that we have this program?
Correct. It was not a state mandated program. It was the legislature mandated the Department of Health and Human Services to create a mechanism for authorizing these programs.
Gotcha. So we don't have to have this. This is something that public health thought would be good for our community, and nothing more than that.
It was, Councilmember Weigel, it was in response to that increase in hepatitis C that we were seeing in the community. We went back to, look at available interventions for addressing increases in hepatitis C. The CDC, under the last three presidential administrations, as well as the last Surgeon General, has, under the Trump administration, have been very supportive of syringe service programs.
I think one of the parts I struggle with is I feel like I'm on a drive through the mountains, and that we hear one goal of the program. It started off as a response to hepatitis and HIV, and then the next goal of the program is to get people seen so they can help kick their addiction habits. And then the next goal is this, and then there's another goal, and then there's another goal. When does the program end? Because I think I recall you saying that hepatitis numbers and HIV numbers are actually down in Grand Forks. Is that correct?
Correct. The number of new hepatitis C cases in Grand Forks has dropped by over half. And just to mention on your previous comment, the 3 goals that I've mentioned are the same as 3 goals as when I came and talked to you in 2019 to start the program, to reduce the incidence of HIV and hepatitis C related to injection drug use, to reduce overdoses, opioid overdose in the community, and then to provide positive connections for people who use drugs.
So option or goal number 2, less overdoses. Is that currently down as well?
Councilmember Weigel, so we get data from various sources that we collect, and that's kind of our primary driver on, is this program effective? And what we're seeing from Altru Health System is their overdose numbers are at the lowest they've been at since 2014. So overdoses reaching the emergency department. When we look at our law enforcement overdose data, that is showing as being down as well. And our participants are reporting that they're reversing overdoses as well. Likewise, we look at overdose deaths in the community. We did see, we had a relatively low number when the program started. We saw an increase in 2021 related to the introduction of pressed pill fentanyl into the community, and those numbers have since decreased back down. We've been very aggressive in using the syringe service program as a naloxone touch point, and that's allowing us to get over 1,000 doses of naloxone out into the community every year for the past couple of years.
So we've reached 2 of our goals in this program. There's only 1 goal left. Is there any other way besides this program to get assistance for addiction to the people that need it besides providing syringes?
Councilmember Weigel, it's always challenging, providing syringes and things like that. But, it's a matter of, it's easy for a change in policy to have unintended consequences on this. And we've seen the decrease in hepatitis C cases, but we are still seeing hepatitis C in that primary group of people who inject drugs. And so we don't necessarily want to abandon that strategy before we've sufficiently decreased down the number of people with hepatitis C. We've made a lot of progress on that, and likewise, going with that, we've seen a significant decrease in the cost and availability of hepatitis C treatment. And so that could open up the door for an eventual discontinuation of the program. Now, moving over to the goal of engaging with individuals, one way that I liken our engagement is, people don't care what you know unless they know how much you care. And so we're trying to acknowledge to individuals that we understand where they are at that particular point in time, to a very small group of the community that are at high risk for significantly high cost care and significant costs across the board, and we're trying to engage with them. There would be other ways for us to try and engage with them, but a lot of them involve a lot higher cost touch points, such as parole and probation, and things like that, healthcare system settings such as that. So this is a really good low barrier option for individuals to, to at least have that starting point, work up that knowledge of what resources are available in the community, and hopefully move them on to those settings.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Let's go with Mr. Kavami, then back to Mr. Weber.
So I actually had a question for Mr. Weigel. So, I think we all agree that we want less drugs in our community. Would it be fair to say? Do you think that discontinuing this program will eradicate drugs or drug use in our community?
No, I think there's always going to be drugs within a community, no matter if it's Grand Forks or Fargo or anywhere else.
I'd agree. So I guess my question or comment is, the people that are coming in to talk to public health are the people that are potentially on the verge. I think the people that are making extreme decisions that aren't in their right mind probably don't care about clean needles anyway, and they're just going to use and they're going to do what they want to do. But the chance of interacting with someone when they're on the verge of trying to make a smart decision, which they're looking at their arm and they're like, well, maybe this isn't the right thing to do. Maybe I should get a clean. That's like the first path to trying to make a change in your life. And if we're going to say no to that, then all we're doing is saying, well, if you're out there and you're using drugs, have at it, have fun. You'll take care of yourself, or you'll end up in the jail, or you'll end up in the hospital, and it'll be a much higher cost for us. I think the only people they're seeing are people on the verge, and those are the people that we want them to see. And so if we get rid of this program, all we're doing is saying we don't care about the people that are maybe thinking about their health. Just use and have at it, and there's no benefit to trying to lure people in. And I don't support drug use. I want there to be a decline, but if we do nothing, nothing will happen. If they've got a little bit of results, I think we have to get data. I think we have to, even if it's non-identifiable information, so we can track how many times people come in, whether they end up in treatment, whether there's got to be some data, because without the data, it does seem a little bit of smoke and mirrors. But even if you don't think about hepatitis or HIV, let's just think about drug users. I think abandoning them doesn't benefit us. And going down to 5, or I think that makes sense, but I think let's trust the people in public health, the people with this experience, to make decisions on what should be included and what shouldn't be. I don't think I'm qualified to tell you that. I just think it's short-sighted to just say no. People are not going to quit, and all it will do is mean that people will have one less opportunity to try and make a change.
I'm not asking to get rid of the program. I've just laid out what I'd like to see the program to be moving forward, with the one-to-one exchange, and a limit of how many needles are given out. But I understand where you're coming from.
All right, is anybody else, one second, President Sandy, does anybody else that hasn't spoken or that wants to speak? Then we'll go back to you.
I have my hand up, Mayor.
Okay, why don't you go ahead, Ken, then I'll go back to you. Mr. Veen, please.
I appreciate the comments Mr. Kwame just talked about. I would say a couple of maybe just quick additional points. They talk about the 20% of the syringes that are not returned, and that's a fair number. But I do think that 80% are returned, and that's excellent, because without an exchange program, there may be none returned. And so I think it's still a better avenue for getting syringes off the street and hopefully returned and safely disposed. I do think it's also interesting that back in 2019, correct me if I'm wrong, but that the city council did approve this at that time. And I'm not for sure, do I remember being challenged since then? Can anybody answer that?
Well, yeah, just other than a few weeks ago, as far as I know.
So I think it's been working successfully. We've not had any that I've known of issues. I think that I like that the idea is having trust in the professionals. This is best practice. And I do agree. I think we should get together and be a part of a system that looks at how we can get better data. But I don't think we should end it while we're waiting to do that.
Mr. If you want to respond real quick,
I would just remind, I'm not asking to end the program.
Okay.
Mr. Gamami's brought that up. Mr. Veen's brought that up. I am not asking to end the program. I've made a motion with some items to continue the program, but changing things a little bit. That's all I've asked to do.
President Sandy, please.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to get home for dinner, so we should probably vote on this, but I'll say I would immediately tonight myself, I'd vote to end the program because I just don't like it. I don't like us providing needles to intravenous drug users. I know that wouldn't pass, so I'm willing to go along with Mr. Weigel's friendly amendment to the original motion. I think that his concept of driving people to want to or to need to come in more often goes exactly to the point of what public health is trying to do. And so I think that would be great addition to this program. And so I will support his motion. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. And then if anyone's thinking that their minds are going to be changed by something profound, maybe we should vote if that's not the case. So please.
I want to understand the amendment, the proposed amendment. So there's a change in the exchange rate. but as Mr. Kavami said, we should let the experts in this kind of help us with that decision. But the other major piece of your motion is a change in the kit. And I'm still not clear what you're intending to eliminate from the kit. And that's a major part of the motion.
Okay, can we be clear, if we have that listed, can you be clear, do you have the items, do you have a list of the items or anything? Or are you comfortable enough to tell us exactly what would be eliminated after the items that were included are included and the other ones are eliminated?
Yeah, I'll have to visualize it in my head, but Councilmember Weber and Mayor Bochensky, so we'd be looking at would be elimination of alcohol wipes, Band-Aids, let's see, tourniquets, triple antibiotic ointment, the tins that we use for like cooking, hand sanitizer, hand warmers, condoms, small packets of lubricant, and I think that is it off the top of my head.
You said that lubricant was already being discontinued, is that right?
Councilmember Weber, we had a request, from clients to have larger volumes of lubricant, so we had like a 4-ounce thing of it, and that there seemed to be, individuals in opposition to that, and that wasn't, a real core part of what we do. So we just went back to what we get from the state, which is small packets of
I see.
lubricant to
So
go with
the
condoms.
4-ounce, that's already been discontinued. These are more specific to the needle
Correct.
use itself. So Mr. Weigel, your amendment would propose eliminating sanitary wipes, Band-Aids, tourniquets, ointment, sanitizer, hand warmers, lubricant related to the needles, and the tins for cooking. Was that the intention of the motion, was to eliminate those things?
Is the lubricant for the needles?
The lubricant is part of just having a touch point for individuals to have condoms and other.
Okay, so not related to the needles.
So the lubricant is not related to needles? Okay.
Lubricant isn't part of the needles itself. That's the reason why we carry condoms, and lubricant is just an extension of the health department into that setting to reach another group of people.
So in relation to your motion, instead of just limiting it to the needles, snacks, and naloxone, are you wanting to, were you wanting to get rid of all these other things as well? Was that the intention of the motion?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, good, I'm ready to vote.
All right, just want to be clear real quick, and then I'll get back to Mr. Kavani. Mr. Gosta, right now, the motion on the floor is to amend the original motion. After that is decided, then either the amended motion or the original motion would then need to be voted on. Is that correct? How you understand it?
Correct. So the first vote is not a substantive vote on the program itself. It's whether you're going to allow the amendment to the motion to be made. If so, then that motion as amended would be substantively voted on. If that motion fails, then the original motion, the substantive motion, would be voted on at that point.
Yep. All right. Mr. Kavami, if you want to, quick comments.
Yeah, I apologize. So I think I can understand the tourniquet and the cooking utensils. I think that I can get my mind around that. But if someone comes into public health and they need a Band-Aid, do you currently offer a Band-Aid to someone if they walked in?
Councilmember Kavami, yes, and I would assume that the intention of this would be to remove it for just the certain service program.
That's correct. If they want to visit public health because they have questions about STDs, something along those lines, and get what they need to for that, I'm okay with that. But I just think throwing everything into a kit and a bag, and whatever they use, whatever they don't, they aren't, then I just don't see the.
And the other part of the motion is to go with the 1-to-1 exchange. So if I come in and I get 10 needles, and I only return 9 because one broke or I lost one, whatever, or I disposed of it properly somewhere else, now I can only get 9 back. Is that right?
Councilmember Weber, he had a
5.
limit of 5, so
A
you
limit
could bring
of
back
5.
10 and you could get 5 back.
Oh, okay, all right, I'm ready to vote.
If you're willing to meet in the middle, Mr. Weber, at 7 or something reasonable, I'm fine with that. I just don't think that you should bring in 20 and get 30 back.
Sure.
If there's a reasonable number that gets people to continue to go to public health, I'm good with that.
I'm ready to vote.
All right.
Sure.
All right, we are going to vote first on the amendment. And Ms. Storstad, if you could just roll call and do it in a random order for the two votes, would be appreciative. So
Sure. I will start
yes or
with-
no, please.
All right, yes or no? Weigel?
Yes.
Kwame?
No.
Veen?
No.
Osowski?
Yes.
Weber?
No.
Lensky?
No.
And President Sandy.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Can I make a motion, please?
We have a current motion still on the, but you'd have to make an amendment to the.
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
Okay, please.
I'd like to do a motion to amend Mr. Weber's motion to mirror what Councilmember Weigel said with 10 needles. Everything else being the same.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. You comfortable with me hearing that vote now? Any other comments?
So I'm still not understanding that. So if I bring in 20 needles now, I can get 25? No, I can only get
10.
I bring in 20, I can only get 10. So eventually, I can't get any more needles. If I disposed of my needles somewhere else, now I'm out of the program. Wow, okay. It seems like that's completely contrary to the intention.
Don't take ID, you
But-
could probably sign up again, maybe.
Oh,
Yeah.
if someone walks in with no needles, do you just deny them?
Councilmember Kwame, our current practice, if they don't bring any back, would be to provide them with 10.
So can we hear a second amendment? We can hear multiple amendments since we haven't voted on the original one. So we've got an amendment that would hear that motion similar. It would have a 1-to-1 model exchange with a maximum of 10 needles. And we've got a motion and a second, so if we could, again, just go through in a roll call vote. Ms. Storstad?
All right, start with Kavami then.
Yes.
Weigel?
Yes.
Veen?
No.
Osowski?
Yes.
Weber?
No.
Lensky?
No.
And President Sandy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, so now the motion would be amended to the motion that Mr. Kavami just made, and I guess unless someone's mind is really going to be changed, why don't we go right to that vote if everyone's okay with that? All right, please, Ms. Storstad, I'm imagining it's similar lines, but
All right, Weigel?
Yes.
Kwame?
Yes.
Veen?
Yes.
Osowski?
Yes.
Weber?
No.
Lensky?
I'm a little confused. What exactly is this now? Are we voting on?
Final motion.
this would be the motion to continue the program, including syringes, snacks, disposal containers, naloxone, test strips, for a 1-for-1 maximum exchange up to a total of 10 needles.
No.
And President?
Mayor?
Oh,
Let me get President Sandy's
President
vote,
Sandy's vote, please.
unless you had misunderstood that, Mr. Veen.
Yeah, that was, because if you don't vote for it, this is to continue it with that, does that mean we continue with what we have? Or it ends?
Well, my understanding is we're deciding whether to continue the program and reject the county's ask to eliminate the program. So, yes, if you're voting for, if this was ultimately voted no, I believe the program will be ended. Is that correct? I don't know.
No, the program will continue as is.
Okay, all right. Is that correct?
Can-
Well, the original motion was to reject the county's ask. So if you're not voting to reject that, what are you in support of purgatory?
No, right now, the motion that is being voted on is to continue the program with the modifications that you just described, with a one-to-one exchange. I'm not going to go through the other because I didn't write them down. The one-to-one exchange, up to 10 needles total. That's the motion that's before this body right now.
And reject the county's ask. I mean, that was the piece of it.
Because they asked you to terminate, the effect would be to reject their request.
So Mayor, I understood that a vote against this was just end the program. That's not my intent to end the program.
Okay. So do you want to change your vote to no? It's not going to matter.
No, that would assume that we've already agreed to end the program independent of this, and that's not the case.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. That was my error.
So you want to change your vote to no, Mr. Veen, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, to no, yes, I got that, okay. So we have Weigel, yes, Osowski,
I
yes,
haven't
Weber,
voted
no,
yes, have I?
Lunsky, no.
We still need President
Kavami,
Sandy to
yes.
vote.
We need President Sandy.
Maybe? Sure. Yes.
Yes.
Moving on.
All right, so that's 4, I show 4 yes, 3 no.
Okay, so that motion has passed. Item number 6, information items, there are none. Item 7, approval of minutes and bills.
7.1, the vendor list and engineer's estimate, that's presented.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to item 8, citizen comments. Oh, sorry, we need to
Can we
approve
get
the
a
vendors
motion
list.
to
Yeah,
approve?
sorry.
Yes.
Got a motion to approve for Mr. Weigel and a second for Mr. Sandy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. It's been a complicated one tonight. Item 8, citizen comments of general nature.
I have one this evening. Dennis Denault.
All right, Mr. Denault, please.
Thank you, folks. And all council members, and the main reason I'm standing here is because I want to bring this to the attention of all the taxpayers of Grand Forks in regards to rental units. And I got a question for the city attorney. Has anything been drawn up for the new 3-strike rule? The PD was there 30 times the year before, and many, many years ago, they lost their license next door to me. And it's just, everybody's shaking their head and wondering how come they can still have a renter certificate with all the drugs that are there. And the other question, whose responsibility is it for the cleanup for all the meth and the drugs? They got busted 3 years ago up there, and they admitted to cooking meth, and it was still going on last year. I still can't get an answer from you or from inspections, whoever's responsible, health department inspections. So how do you file a complaint against a city employee or a department? No answer, okay. Also, the business pulled the parallel parking sign last year. There's been parallel parking on that side, on the west side on 14th Street, ever since we were little kids, when it was a grocery store. And in the wintertime, and I brought this up many, many, many years ago, back with the previous fire chief, O'Neill, you couldn't even get an ambulance by or a fire truck with all the snow piled up. It's a safety hazard. And what gives them the right to pull that parallel parking sign when it's a major safety issue? And I'd sure like to get an answer here within a couple meetings. 3-strike rule, the meth and drugs in apartments, filing a complaint or an investigation towards the department or certain employees, possibly even the city attorney, you, and parallel parking. So anyway, it was a good meeting. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Mr. Denault. We're on to item 9, city administrator comments. Any comments this evening, Mr. Phelan?
No, thank you, Mayor Paczynski.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to mayor and council member comments for item number 10. Mr. Weigel, any comments this evening?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Osowski?
I'm going to make it quick because I'd like to get out of here, but thank you to the fire department and your charity and doing such wonderful work. Nobody hates the fire department. So also, I would like to see, I guess, some consistency in the documents that Mary Ann showed, just making sure that, you know, what we say on the website is on the pamphlet that we're handing out. I think that's a very fair request. And thank you for all the information that you have given me. I wish the Circle of Friends the best of luck. They're not here anymore. But what do we do if it doesn't work out? You know, I mean, I guess we can cross that bridge when it happens. But I think that, I guess I don't know how long it takes for a nonprofit to get back on their feet. So I do think we should be a little bit prepared for that in case things don't work out. And I did get the chance to tour Spectra with Tess, and it was a really good experience, and I'm very happy that I went. I learned a lot, and I think Spectra is a great little clinic, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Osowski. Ms. Lunsky, any comments?
Yes, I would like to apologize to the LGBTQ plus citizens of Grand Forks. 2 weeks ago, we were asked to pull funds from Pride and from the immigrant community, and I wish I would have spoken up then. I just want the LGBTQ plus and the immigrant citizens of Grand Forks to know that they are an important part of this community, and I want them to know that they are seen, they are heard, and they are loved as a member of our community. And I apologize for not speaking up 2 weeks ago.
Thank you, Ms. Lunsky. Mr. Kavanaugh, any comments?
No, thank you.
Mr. Veen, any comments?
No, thank you.
All right, Vice President Weber.
I'll just echo what Ms. Osowski said. I also got to do a tour of Spectra. So my thanks to the folks in public health and all the folks over at Spectra and all the great work that they do there.
All right, thank you, President Sandy.
Yeah, I'd third that. It was Ms. Duran and Ms. Wall provided a very good tour for us. I've been a supporter of the dental clinic there for many years, and it's amazing to see how many different services that they're providing now, including optometry and others. That it's just really an impressive clinic and a really great benefit to our community. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, President Sandy. I think the only comments I've got tonight is, I think it was a spirited discussion tonight. We've had good discussions, and people have differences of opinions on things that we have to vote on up here. I don't think anybody that voted for or against something is a bad person or a good person. I think everybody wants what's best. They just see a different direction to get there. So I appreciate everyone calmly stating their thoughts and their opinions, and I think it was a good discussion, but I hope people do realize that as people make these tough decisions, they've thought about them, and nobody's a bad person. They're just doing what they think is best. So I just want to thank the council for the conversation tonight.
I move adjournment.
Got a motion to adjourn. Move on to item 11. Do we have a second? Second from President Sandy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.